Table of contents. First, in the introduction, we will introduce the topic at hand and lay down some key information that will be vital in making a moral decision about our case. Next, Jake, Nathan, and I will share our ideas and thoughts and decisions. And lastly, we will end with a couple concluding remarks.
So, what exactly was our case? Well, we were presented with, you are a doctor at a top hospital. You have 6 gravely ill patients, 5 of whom are in urgent need of an organ transplant. You can't help them though, because there are no available organs that can be used to save their lives. The 6th patient, however, will die without a particular medicine. If he/she dies, you will be able to save the other 5 patients by using the organs of the 6th patient, who is an organ donor. What do? Now, to approach this from a Catholic morality lens, we need to use all the tools taught to us throughout the unit. So let's make sure we understand them and are able to apply each of them to aid us in our decision process. The first principle of practical reasoning. Rooted in the teachings of St. Thomas Aquinas, the first principle of practical reasoning is that humans are naturally motivated to seek good and avoid evil. This helps to guide us to act in accordance with God's will, pursuing what is inherently good and avoiding what is inherently evil as revealed through natural law.
Substantive goods. These are the real goods that contribute to human flourishing as intended by God, like love, justice, and eternal salvation. They align with the ultimate purpose of human life, which is to find unity with God. An example of a substantive good is a beautiful piece of artwork or landscape, because although it might not be appreciated, the beauty is still inside it. Reflexive goods are useful goods that are morally neutral, but gain value when they serve substantive goods. So for example, a delicious meal, the meal becomes a reflexive good because of the pleasure of somebody eating it.
The first principle of morality. The first principle of morality teaches us that the ultimate guide for moral action is love of God and love of thy neighbor. The principle is grounded in Jesus' teachings and reflects the call to act in ways that promote the dignity of all persons. St. Thomas Aquinas' 3 parts to morality. First is the act. This is the actual deed performed, and it must conform to both God's law and natural law. Next is the intention. This is the purpose or motivation behind the act, and it also must align with seeking the good. Last is the circumstance. These are the contextual factors, and they can affect the moral weight of an act, but can't make an inherently evil act good.
The principle of double effect. This principle helps determine the morality of an action that has both a good and unintended evil effect. It is often applied in complex moral scenarios like the one we have been presented with today. The 4 requirements of the principle of double effect are as followed. Number 1, the act itself must be morally good or neutral. Number 2, good effect must not result from the evil effect. Number 3, the intention must be to achieve the good effect, while the bad effect is merely tolerated. And number 4, there must be a proportionate reason to permit the evil effect. Utilitarianism. A secular moral philosophy focused on maximizing overall happiness or utility. Utilitarianism is inconsistent with Catholic morality because it allows for morally evil actions, e.g., for example, harming a few to benefit the many, and undermines the intrinsic dignity of every person as a child of God. A categorical imperative. A principle from Immanuel Kant that suggests one should act only according to maxims that could be universal laws. While the universal application of moral laws aligns with natural law, Catholic morality goes further by granting universal moral truths in God's divine law, emphasizing love and grace as essential components of ethical behavior.
Jake's opinions. When looking at this scenario, it isn't evident right away what choice we should make. We need to use certain tools to aid us in our decision-making process. The first tool we can use is the first principle of practical reasoning. This principle teaches us that humans are intrinsically motivated to seek good and avoid evil. It helps guide us to act in accordance with God's will, pursuing what is inherently good and avoiding what is inherently evil, as revealed through natural law. When applying this principle to our scenario, we see a person who is easily savable with a particular medicine, while 5 other patients will die. To withhold the medicine from the patient who can be saved would be murder, as he is innocent and doesn't deserve to die. This is obviously evil, as you have the power and responsibility to save them, but don't. Now, I'm not saying that the other 5 patients deserve to die, but this is the morally right choice to make, as the patient can be saved. This choice is rooted in the nature of humans, as we will inherently want to choose the choice that leads to the good. And in this case, avoiding the murder of an innocent life who doesn't deserve to die is the morally good choice. Next, we can use the principle of morality, the first principle of morality, and apply it to our scenario. We are taught to love thy neighbor as we love ourselves, and this can be used to help us make a choice. This principle is grounded in Jesus' teachings and reflects the call to act in ways that promote the dignity of all persons. It's the golden rule and one of the most important principles in all of morality. It helps us try and visualize what someone else is feeling and helps us to make the tough choices that aren't always evident right away. By putting ourselves in the shoes of the patient who can be treated, we can think about what we would want to happen. Obviously, we would want to receive the treatment and be saved. While there are lives that could be saved if you aren't saved, life is sacred, and if we have the opportunity to save it, we must. Now, we do need to consider the lives of the other 5 people, as by taking the treatment, you are guaranteeing their death. We do need to show love for them, as they are humans, and understand that they too have human dignity, but not to the point of sacrificing one's own life for them. By seeing how we ourselves would want to be treated in this scenario, we can see that we should treat the patient instead of withholding the medication and saving the other 5 patients. The first principle of morality is the first principle for a reason. It allows us to promote the human dignity in all people and really lets us see what another person might want in a given scenario. Overall, after using both tools, I believe we should save the patient and give them the medicine. Ultimately, this decision is more than just about the immediate consequences. It reflects the kind of moral beings we aim to be. By treating the patient who is saved, we maintain the intrinsic values of every individual, which is to act in accordance with our natural inclination to do good and avoid evil, as well as following the principle of treating others as we wish to be treated ourselves. While this choice may leave some sense of sorrow for the 5 patients we cannot save, it remains the morally sound decision, and it aligns with the principles of moral reasoning and love for others that should guide all of our actions.
Cases like these are often thought about in people's minds when they are just sitting on the subway, contemplating on a long drive, or going on a walk, or in other solitary situations. It's a tool used to grapple with a person's own morality, and I myself am guilty of this. In this particular case, I was personally really on the fence about which way I was leaning, but after using and reading about the Catholic morality tools, I found coming to a decision on what I would do much easier. The first tool that helped me make my decision is the first principle of practical reasoning, saying humans should seek God and avoid evil. Evil to me is defined as doing something to someone who is undeserving of the effect, which is everyone because of our inherent human dignity. In this case, the patient whose organs need to be harvested for the other 5 patients has done nothing to deserve death, making the act itself inherently evil. The next tool I used was St. Thomas Aquinas' 3 parts to Catholic morality. We have the objective of the act, which is to kill a patient. Without looking at what comes as a result of his death, we know that through the Catholic lens, that murder is wrong, and in the sense of the word, we know letting this patient die is essentially murder. Intention of the act is to save 5 more lives, but because of this, a person is murdered, which bears a heavy weight on the conscience. This is also where the principle of double effect comes into play. Finally is the circumstance, where we know the situation is urgent and immediately calls for action. Using the Catholic lens of morality, we know that the murder of one to save another is wrong, especially a person who is completely innocent. We can also use the golden rule to treat others the way we want to be treated. If you were the one who was about to be sacrificed, I'm sure you'd want to be saved, especially likely being unaware of your organs being transplanted if you die to save 5 others. However, we have only been focusing on the 1 patient. The other 5 patients are also undeserving of death and need to be treated and cared for and loved by us. However, the prompt does not say the patients will for sure die immediately without the first patient's death, So using that, we can assume that it's a possibility another doubter may fall into our laps. This helps guide one through the moral reasoning, as their deaths are not certain, and using their Catholic moral lens, we can implement hypotheticals into the equation to help guide one into making a decision. So, for all the reasons above, in my opinion, the first patient should live. It's a tragic situation, but we must take into account inherent, inviolable, and inalienable human dignity, and every person must be treated as a child of God, undeserving of evil. Thank you very much.
In my opinion, when we look at substantive and reflective goods, we see a dilemma that involves two types of moral goods. Substantive goods, which are those that contribute directly to human flourishing, such as things like health and life. Life, in this case, is the life of the sick patient. It is reserved as a substantive good, whereas reflexive goods include moral integrity and justice. The act of killing sick patients compromises one's commitment to justice because this holds the person as expendable. Knowing what we are doing is wrong and saving the sick patient, we respect both kinds of goods, doing justice and preserving life without detaining from either, and to appreciate both. We can't willingly try to help the sick patient to save the other five, and although it would be hard to hope the other five get help, we can't take away the health and life knowing that we can do something, and the moral integrity would be compromised not helping, which goes against the Catholic morals. We are also looking at utilitarianism, which would favor an action that maximizes the good for the most significant number. In this situation, the utilitarian approach would approve of sacrificing one's life to save five. It would need to be completed in contrast to Catholic morality, which plus inherent worth in every human being. This would mean making the sick patient as a means to an end, devaluing the patient's life, and eroding the trust in medical ethics. This cannot be reconciled with the Catholic commitment to justice and dignity. Categorical imperative. When looking at our case of sacrificing one for five others, it's important to look at the categorical imperative, which insists that moral acts be universalized. If sacrificing one life to save another became a principle accepted by the society, trust would be undermined and respect for individual rights would be eroded. Universalizing such a principle will lead to moral chaos, where the most vulnerable could always be sacrificed to someone perceived to be the greater good. It will also lead to making people feel as if they have no dignity and seem as if they are means to an end. When looking at universalizing this, we also look at if the act would be considered good. If we were all able to do it, and this is when we see if it is an evil act and that no one should be used as a sacrifice, as it takes away human dignity. My decision. Overall, when using the moral reasoning tools, the only thing that would be compatible with the Catholic morals and ethical reasoning is providing medicine to the sick patient. It is sad, but in such a case, five others may die, yet their deaths will not be a result of an act that is deliberately evil, which means we are not going against the Catholic morals and the ideals of the Church.